It looks like everyone's back in their seats. I think a few lagging, but not critical information here that anybody's gonna miss. So I'm Genine Carvalheira. I think I've met most of you, maybe in person, but not. I'm the current president of Urban Sketchers. Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Or do I need to get closer? Okay. Just give you a little bit about myself. I grew up in New York, Long Island, not Manhattan, but did the whole New York thing up and down. Stayed there most of my life. And I was in Rochester, New York for 25 years or so. And I was a solo sketcher. So I started drawing just because I felt like I needed something in my life. And I had a hard time working with this inner critic who wasn't the nicest person in the entire world. So for years, it kept me from drawing. But then we had a really good conversation, a couple of them, and we still have them all the time. But allowed me to start trying to capture my world. I hadn't yet heard of this thing called Urban Sketchers. I was just kind of drawing. I belong to a Yahoo group called Everyday Matters. Does anybody know the Everyday Matters group from Danny Gregory's book? Yeah. Yeah, I joined that Yahoo group. That shows you how old I am a little bit. And I had stumbled upon some drawings in around 2007 and 2008. And I saw these sketches of the world and started hearing about this thing called Urban Sketchers. And of course, like most of you, I'm like, oh, what's going on? And then eventually I found our blog. So when Gabby started that in, I believe 2008, 2009 is when he had launched the blog. And I kind of was hooked. I was following people's journeys across the world because what we do, right? We capture what we see, we're truthful to our experience, and then we share it with all of these other people. And then, I was refreshing that blog every single day because I just wanted to see what else was out there and gaining all of this inspiration. And we're here right now at our 11th symposium, which is crazy. I've been fortunate enough to go to quite a few. I heard about the first one a month before it was happening in Portland, and my best friend had tickets to come visit. And I contemplated asking her if she would change them. I was like, I think I could still go, but that's one of the things I miss. So of course, after I had seen the photos and heard everything about it, and then heard the announcement of Lisbon, I knew that I had to plan my entire year around it. And so I got on a flight and went to Lisbon. And here's my tiny little head in that sea of people. And there I was. I was a sketcher without a chapter. Anybody here a single sketcher without a chapter? Okay, I wasn't alone. Yep, we're getting on it. So it was interesting to go from an environment where I was out sketching the world, but only by myself, to then flying to Lisbon and being dropped into a sea of people like we have here, right? So incredibly different. Like I was extremely intimidated by the work I had seen online. And I was this new sketcher with these sketches. And I was like, oh my gosh, I do not want to share these with anybody. They're going to laugh in my, they're going to be like, what are you doing here? You're not good enough to be here. But what surprised me most about this community is how open we are, how encouraging. There can be someone who's an instructor or who's been sketching for 50 years or 20 or 30, they could be this incredible talent. And they would look at my baby sketchbook and find something in that they liked and talk about that. Prior to that, I had never been in a community that was so open and so encouraging and so willing to share their own techniques and ideas. I don't know if you've experienced this, but sometimes in the art world, we could be a little bit, like, this is my work. You can see the finished project, but I might not want to share my technique because then you may take my technique. But here, it's like, oh, this is my technique. Here's my tools. Here's my pen. Do you want to draw in my sketchbook? Have you guys experienced any of this? Yeah, like the sharing. And it's what kept me coming back. So by the time day 2 was over, I knew I was hooked. And then I knew I had to plan like all of my vacations in my mind at that point because I was single. I was like, forever, these are my vacations for the rest of my life. And then that kept happening. So here's my tiny head in Santo Domingo. And then I'll go through them quickly, but I meant the pictures. And then here's in Barcelona. And so over the years, it was interesting to have gone to number 2 and see how the groups have grown, right? And how our community has just flourished, and how each city we've gone to has been a different experience, right? I've experienced these cities in a way I don't think I would have had I just been a tourist walking around, right? Seeing people and meeting people from, I mean, all over the world. And I think, I know for me, like this community, so it's not even, I don't want to say this, it's not even the drawing part, but like Pat was saying before, it's the people who have been the most surprising and the most incredible. I mean, I felt like I had an instant community and I was a part of an instant family that I could go into any city and go to our map and message someone, and I would immediately be welcomed with open arms. And it's not just yeah, okay, here you can go to this location, you can go to this location. They're like, okay, what time would you like us to meet you? We'll pick you up, we'll take you here. Like I've been invited into people's homes. It's just an amazing amount of hospitality that I pause because I get choked up when I think about what I've gained by being a part of this Urban Sketchers family. It's just incredible. You can see Pat had gone over this, but 394 chapters in 71 countries. I mean, it makes it like not impossible, but it makes it so possible to travel all over the world and to be able to find a connection. Sorry, I get a little, again, choked up, and that community and that connection, these friendships that we build last for years. For those who were in Amsterdam, Amber told this story, and I tell it again because Amber Sousen, she's our 2 presidents ago, she was a president of Urban Sketchers. She and I met in Lisbon. It was both our first symposium, and we met in our first workshop, and we have been friends since that day. We have, like, there's a bond that's created when we all share like this love. I mean, what other place can you go and be surrounded by like 500 to 1,000 geeks who are all geeked up about the same thing you're geeked up about, right? Like at home, do you get to just pull out pens and talk at a table with your family or these other things and get going for 12 minutes about pigment? Right? Like, what kind of nib is that? What kind of ink do you write? Do you have this? Is that granulating or not? Right? Like, we get to do that. And then this thing of urban sketching just bonds you together. I mean, you make the connections, and then it's even more interesting, like that you see each other year after year. This family comes back together. I know so many of us who've been to a few symposiums talk about coming back to our family reunion. We're every year. So like you're walking in and we're hugging, and we were just looking at pictures before from when we had a little less gray hair and a few less wrinkles and maybe had more mobility. It's just one of the most incredible things, I think. One of the most incredible gifts I've ever been given in my life has been this gift of Urban Sketchers and this community. Because of all of that, I've been asked this question before, so this is up here. Have you considered giving back? Because I had gotten a phone call one day that had said, "Hey, Genine, I know how much you love Urban Sketchers, and I know that it means so much to you. Like, have you ever considered giving back?" I was like, giving back? Yeah, like, yeah, what do you mean? I'm like, well, in volunteering, in a little bit, like, in a little bit bigger of a way. Like, we know you come to these, we have so much fun, but, the organization is 100% volunteer based. So yeah, no one is paid to do any of this. The local team, the symposium team, the executive board, every single person donates their time to keep this organization going. And that's how it's been since the beginning, right? So we thrive and we succeed based on the generosity of people. And so when I had gotten that call, there wasn't even kind of a question. I was like, yeah, I would love to give back. Like, what can I do? So way back in maybe like 2012, I volunteered as a part of the membership committee. And this was back before we even had chapters. So this was like, we had a form on the old blog, and you would write in and be like, I'm Angela. I'm from New Zealand. I would like to be an urban sketcher. And so we would go through. So it was incredible to be a part of the process to grow our family, to grow our community. And then, life has it. You have things to do, jobs, family, this and that. So I took a little bit of a step back, but still kept coming, right? Still kept coming to the events and doing that. And I got another call. Hey, Genine, we know you volunteered before. We know how much you love it. Have you ever considered maybe doing something else or giving a little bit more time? What did I have to say? Of course, yes, but I didn't really know what there was, like what we can do. I found back then, and even now a little bit, finding a way to give back is a little vague. I know a lot of people will be like, oh, I would love to volunteer. How or why? And so I asked those very same questions. Okay, like, how can I give back? What is a way to give back? And I didn't realize at the time that we post like jobs out in the real world where people get paid. We post positions on our website. So there were some positions open, and I had gone to the website and looked at it, and it was vice president. And I was like, oh my God, what? There's a vice president of this organization? Like, they have that? Like, I knew there was a president because I kept seeing people, right? But seeing this president on the stage, but I had no idea, just how big the organization was. So threw my hat in the ring, because why not? I had the time. I knew I wanted to do it. I knew that, this community just meant so much to me. And if I could do more, like, I don't know, it felt like a need that I wanted to do it. So I threw my hat in the ring, and there were like multiple rounds of interviews. We had multiple candidates, and I was lucky enough to be chosen as the vice president and membership director at the time. And that was in 2020. And so it was incredible. It was incredible to see just how many people it takes to make this organization move, right? We don't kind of realize it. We have an executive board of officers and directors, and there's 8 people who are on the EB. And we have committees underneath most of those, right? And then we have subcommittees, and we have sub teams that work on these. So you obviously know my name is Genine Carvalheira, and I am the president. And then we have our VP who you spoke to. So Patrick, he is the membership director and vice president. We have our treasurer, because we have to have somebody who can be responsible and take care of our money and do our accounting. That's not my favorite thing to do. He is our treasurer. We have Annette Morris, who is our secretary. We have Eric, as you know, who is our events director and local lead here. Rita, who will be up next, but you have seen, she is our education director. We have Mohan Banerjee, who is our sponsorship director. So he is directly responsible. So those goodie bags you have, right? The sponsors we have out there, like, he and his team are directly responsible for making those relationships and those partnerships happen. And then we have Regina, who is our communications director. So that's a newer role we've added into the executive board in the last year. But it's amazing. And under each one is a team. So we have these kind of seemingly larger roles, right, of these executive board positions, but giving back doesn't have to be that big. So education has an education committee, membership has a membership committee. So all of these committees have positions that can be as much or as little work as a person has time to give. But with each person who gives a little bit, it helps keep us going. Yeah, and it's just incredible. And volunteering is work, right? The executive board is work to move us along. We meet, the EB meets every month. So we have like a 2.5 hour meeting on a Saturday across some time zone, because we are spread out across. So we are in Colombia, Singapore, the US, France, England, and New Zealand. So, sometimes Eric has to wake up super early or Pat has to stay up super late, but we're all excited and dedicated and committed to this. And so we work, and we're lucky enough. And as you can see in the upper right, like Zooms, right? So obviously during the pandemic, we didn't get to see each other. So most of us met, well, not most, some of us met for the first time ever, just on Zoom and online, and worked together to make things happen. And then in September of last year, we got to have our first in-person executive board meeting, which was amazing. And we also realized that I am a lot shorter in person than I look on the internet. And other people are a lot taller. Like, everyone came up and they were like, "Oh, you're not as tall as I thought you were." But it was incredible. So we spent 3 days in this beautiful room trying to learn, trying to plan, trying to figure out the future of the organization. And it was just incredible. And I think one of the coolest things about the trip is we got to meet in person. We got to connect in a different way that then made Zooms later so much easier. Like when you have a relationship with a person, like things just change. But I think one of the greatest things is on that trip, we were able to give back, right? So that trip was twofold. We were there to help the organization. We were there to work on the future of that, but we were there to bring urban sketching to the community. So how could we be of best service? And that's how we select our locations. We know we need to meet, but what part of the world can we meet in? What area? So we met with a chapter that had been established for quite a bit, but they were needing a little bit of boost. They wanted to connect with their surrounding chapters. So as a part of the in-person program, we had 2.5 days of community-based events. So we had workshops, we had lectures, we had demos. We had, I wouldn't really call them drink and draws, but we partnered with a local not-for-profit that had a share space. And then we were giving talks there as well. And everything that was done for free. So it was just another way for us to use our passion to give back to other people. And I find being in this position, I know I do this, but I get so much back from meeting somebody new, from introducing somebody to urban sketching, right? Like, do you guys remember the first time you met an urban sketcher or was introduced to an urban sketch? Yes? Hands? Right? Pretty incredible, right? I know for so many of us, like my world was changed. Obviously, all of my travel plans were changed because now I had to follow this organization through the course of the world. But for others, their life changed, right? Like people started to do this for a living, started to do this as a career. So I feel like you just get back so much. And I think giving that gift for me has been more than anything in the entire world. So I talked about some of the committees. But yeah, I mean, we can do this in any way we can give back. These are just so you know, I put them up here, the various committees. And like I said, each one has, we have special projects, we have special functions, and you may be like, but how or why, or how can I get back? So we have on our website, we have a form. So you don't have to pick a committee. You don't have to make a decision. But if you go onto our website, which is urbansketchers.org, and there's a volunteer button, right? You can fill out a form and you can be like, hey, this is where I am. And these are the skills that I have that I'm interested in giving back. And then we contact you. Hey, your social media is savvy. Would you like to work on our social media team? Or, hey, we're working on outreach. That's one of our strategic priorities for the next couple of years. Oh, you have a passion for that, right? So there's so many ways you can give back. So you can go to the form. Like Pat was saying, our email system is quite simple. You want to volunteer? Volunteer at urbansketchers.org. And you can just say, hey, my name is, let me look at someone's name, Sudha. I heard Genine talking at the symposium. I would love to give back to the organization. What can I do? And this is how much time I have. And then, or you can just email me. So you can just email president@urbansketchers.org. And then I'm happy we'll connect, and then I could connect you with any of the committees we have. But I think I have to say, like, if you're considering it, if you have any time, it will be one of the most rewarding experiences. And we're kind of fun. Like, we joke around, we have a good time. And I think all sharing that common goal of bringing urban sketches to other people like I said, creates a bond that, I don't know, for me has just been unmatched across my life. So that's really it. Is there any questions? I did a great job then, if there's no questions whatsoever. I pre-answered everything. Alvin. And Alvin is also a volunteer. He volunteers for our membership committee, and he also does work for our sponsorship committee. So thank you, Alvin, for everything. Questions? Yeah.
Okay. Giving back is something I do, and I do a separate you're the first but this is very applicable to us. When we like to get projects, ways that we can get out good things, a bunch of particular themes, sketches or something, but not always going the commercial high cost way, but finding out ourselves. So if this is somebody to speak to about that issue, then
okay, yeah, we'll connect with you on that. And then I guess another way to give back. So if you don't have time, right? Like many of us have busy lives, donations. So I know we talk about that. We're talking about the silent auction, but if you can't give back with time, you can also give back. All year long, we have a donate button on our website. Being a not-for-profit organization, we don't make money. We don't have products that we sell on a basis. So everything we do. So, I mean, things like we have to pay taxes. We have to pay for the insurance that covers the chapters, right? Like last year we gave out $10,000 in grants for the a regional chapters event. And then we also gave out money for reportage grants. So giving back can also be done in a monetary way. Not that I'm asking you for money, but those are the things that keep the organization running, both from an organizational standpoint, but then allow us to create new projects, because we're always looking for new ways. So when we talk about outreach, we have a community events grant. So in the past, and that'll probably be coming up next year, is we have a grant. You want to do something, you want to use urban sketching in your community. We have a grant you can apply for that we help fund. So that way you can use Urban Sketchers as a tool, like Pat was saying earlier, use Urban Sketchers as a tool to do good in the world. So that's it. Thank you guys so much for coming. If there's no other questions, I will change it over.